Waring Nets started out in 1957 in Gosforth, Newcastle, and it was Arnold Waring and Len Nets that set the business up. One of the major projects in the 60s was Montague Court, and then subsequently went on to develop a whole load of retail and housing experience through the 60s, 70s, and then on to where we are now.
Initially, it was very old-fashioned. The partners were ex-war officers, after the war, etc. So there were moustaches and reading the Times in the morning and this sort of thing. Started as a student, worked with one of the senior partners, Lenny Nets. Real love-hate relationship, very challenging man to work for, but taught me everything I know, basically. That's all I can say. Wonderful guy.
The end of the period of Waring and Nets, before it became Space, I designed Trinity Gardens and started off literally with my watercolour concepts of how each of the buildings there were going to be, the offices, the multi-storey car park, the flats, the shops, and even the public open space, how that would look visually in watercolour. And then I developed it from then on with the firm into something that I'm quite proud of today.
When we started out, it was very much around architecture, and as the years and decades went on, the role of the architect became more marginalised. We found an opportunity that we could broaden things out by using technology and innovation.
Computers came in about 30 years ago. We were at the forefront of that. We bought a huge computer at the time. It was half the size of this room. It's absolutely massive. It cost a fortune, and it was probably put in the bin after about 3 years because technology just rolls on at such a pace.
The first system was called GDS, which was General Drafting System. So I got involved with that. With that being the sort of first system, it was very expensive, so we could only have one workstation.
Now we work on a 3D program, which is called Revit, which has moved the business on another stride again. Projects are massively larger. I work on sort of £30 million hotels or sports centres, that kind of level. It's a different level.
Now the whole company is based around BIM. The architect's business is 100% BIM, and we now have our own specialist BIM consultancy, BIM Technologies, which is one of the teams I head up, which actually delivers BIM for clients on large projects. So a lot of the technology we're developing inside of Space Groups now, other people want it as well. I now head up the R&D development team, SAT, where we develop applications, software, R&D programs for other organisations as well. So now what we're looking at is the AR, machine learning, and how that can be applied to construction. So buildings that can think for themselves and manage themselves during operation.
So what would Arnold and Len think of the industry that we're in today? And I honestly think if you go back to the 1950s, they could not have foreseen where we are now. I think that the direction of travel on every aspect, culturally, even from a fees point of view, how much we do now for a more reduced fee because we can do things more efficiently, the pace we do things at, how we look to the future about buildings in operation. I think it would have been difficult for those guys to even consider what we're doing now, and they would look at what we do now and would think it a completely different industry and profession to the ones they started out in. Waring Nets has always had a great culture from the beginning, and we've continued that through into Space Group. It always had a very family feel. We were a very close team, and we're very keen and passionate about working with our clients and building long-term relationships.
It's a challenging job, but what makes it worthwhile doing really is the people you meet and the people you work with. That's what makes it an enjoyable environment.
Back in the 60s, when we designed Montague Court, it was a really high-profile building for the city. It was very innovative at its time, it was a very high-profile landmark, and it was a real statement of confidence in the city. It was very flexible, and it was very innovative. All of those things in how we deliver buildings and how we make them better are still relevant today. So we want to create flexible spaces, we want to be innovative, we want to challenge, and we want to make a difference to the community. So all those things back in the 60s we did at Montague Court are still relevant for every building that we deliver today.